Your knowledge of contract language is imperative.
You must know what a violation looks like if you wish to be active in its cessation.
It is important to understand that being active and knowledgeable affects your overall bargaining strength.
Together, we can forge a more militant NALC.
Good morning and welcome back to Parcels of Knowledge, the podcast dedicated to delivering knowledge to the city letter carrier with your host, the Roseville Wrecking Ball. Today we will be going over two of my specialties, Article 8 and Article 11, specifically as it pertains to the month of December for Article 8. There are changes or exceptions to the overtime rules that specifically apply to the month of December, but the Article 11 talk will apply for all year round. Just remember, this is as everything pertains to the national agreement, without alterations of anyone's LMOU. If you want a full picture, I suggest you get a copy of your LMOU and be familiar with the language. First, let's talk about the sexiest article of the entire national agreement, Article 8. During the month of December, there are some exceptions to normal rules regarding the payment of penalty overtime, the assignment of certain overtime, and work hour limitations for some individuals. At times, these exceptions can be confusing, so it is important to understand the contractual language that addresses them. The rules governing the payment of penalty overtime are found in Article 8 of the National Agreement. The rate of pay for penalty overtime is governed by the provisions of Article 8, Section 4C, which states penalty overtime pay is to be paid at the rate of 2 times the base hourly straight time rate. Penalty overtime pay will not be paid for any hours worked in the month of December. The preceding paragraph shall apply to city carrier assistant employees. While this provision applies to all letter carriers, determining when the penalty overtime rate is applicable depends on the classification of the employee. The entitlement to penalty overtime for full-time regulars and full-time flexibles is addressed in Article 8, Section 4D of the National Agreement, which states, penalty overtime pay will be paid to full-time regular employees for any overtime work in contravention of the restrictions in Section 5F. In Article 8, Section 5F states, excluding December, no full-time regular employee will be required to work overtime on more than 4 of the employee's 5 scheduled days in a service week, or work over 10 hours on a regularly scheduled day, or over 8 hours on a non-scheduled day, or over 6 days in a service week. The explanation for this section is found on 817 of the JCAM. Article 8.5F applies to both full-time regular and full-time flexible employees. The only 2 exceptions to the work hour limits provided for in this section are for all full-time employees during the penalty overtime exclusionary period and for full-time employees on the ODL during any month of the year. Both work and paid leave hours are considered work for the purposes of administration of Article 8.5F and 8.5G. The rules governing how part-time flexibles and city carrier assistants receive penalty overtime pay are found in Article 8, Section 4E, which states, excluding December, part-time flexible employees will receive penalty overtime pay for all work in excess of 10 hours in a service day or 56 hours in a service week. This language also applies to city carrier assistants. This language requires the payment of penalty overtime to PTFs and CCA letter carriers for all work in excess of 10 hours in a service day or 56 hours in a service week. Part-time regulars are in the same category as PTFs for penalty overtime purposes. The penalty overtime exclusion period for calendar year 2025 will be November 29th through December 26th. When determining the entitlement to penalty overtime pay, both the actual hours worked and any leave hours are counted. This is explained on page 8.3 of the JCAM, which states, all bargaining unit employees are paid postal overtime for time spent in a pay status in excess of 8 hours in a service day or in excess of 40 hours in a service week. Hours in pay status include hours of actual work and hours of paid leave. The first exception to these rules, which affects all carriers, involves the payment of penalty overtime during the month of December. In accordance with Article 8, Section 4C, penalty overtime will not be paid for any hours worked in December. This is commonly referred to as the penalty overtime exclusionary period. Don't forget that the new 250% premium that should be paid beyond 12 hours in a day or 60 hours in a week does count in the December exclusionary period, which is a little confusing, but it's nice to see that it does. Although Article 8, Sections 4 and 5 identify the month of December, in 1985 the national parties agreed that the month of December referenced in these sections is understood to mean 4 consecutive service weeks rather than the entire month. This can be found in M Document 1508. The specific period is usually published each year in the Postal Bulletin and the Postal Record. The second exception, during December, pertains to the daily and weekly work hour limitations. Article 8, Section 5G provides that full-time employees on the overtime desired list or work assignment list may be required to work up to, and are limited to, 12 hours in a day or 60 hours in a service week, except for now you can be volunteering beyond those limitations. However, these work limits do not apply to these carriers during the penalty overtime exclusionary period. Management may, but is not required, to assign ODL carriers to work in excess of the 12 and 60 hour limitations during the penalty overtime exclusionary period. Management may, but is not required to. Keep that in mind. Section 432.32 of the Employee Labor Relations Manual establishes the maximum hours allowed for full-time employees not on the ODL or work assignment lists, PTRs, PTFs, and CCAs, except as designated in labor agreements for bargaining unit employees or in emergency situations as determined by the Postmaster General or designee. Employees may not be required to work more than 12 hours in one service day. In addition, the total hours of daily service, including scheduled work hours, overtime, and mealtime, may not extend over a period longer than 12 consecutive hours. Postmasters and exempt employees are excluded from these provisions. Just remember, that usually means 11 and a half if you're taking a lunch. Step 4 Settlement M 1272 clarifies that the 12-hour limit established by ELM 43232 continues to apply to full-time employees not on the ODL or work assignment list, PTRs, PTFs, and CCAs, even during the penalty overtime exclusion period. Similar to the previous reference that paid leave counts toward overtime, page 819 of the JCAM states that the 12 and 60-hour limitations are inclusive of all hours, including any type of leave taken. Keep in mind that the new right to turn down overtime after 12 hours in a day or 60 hours in a week should apply during this time frame of December. The third exception, during December, pertains to letter carriers on the work assignment list. As stated, excluding December, work assignment list carriers are available to work up to 12 hours in a day or 60 hours in a service week. Outside of the penalty overtime exclusionary period, management has the right to assign an employee on the ODL to work regular overtime to avoid paying penalty overtime to a carrier on the work assignment list. This can limit a carrier on the work assignment list to 10 hours in a service day, even if additional overtime is available on his or her bid assignment. This is explained on page 821 of the JCAM. Management may assign an employee from the regular ODL to work overtime to avoid penalty pay to a carrier who has signed for the work assignment overtime. This exception does not apply during the penalty overtime exclusionary period when penalty overtime is not paid. During the penalty overtime exclusion period, the carrier on the work assignment list has the right to work the additional time over 10 hours, since penalty overtime is not paid. Keep in mind this exception applies only when management wants to assign a carrier from the ODL to work the overtime. Management still retains the right to utilize a letter carrier at the straight time rate or a PTF or CCA at the straight time or overtime rate prior to assigning additional overtime to a carrier on the work assignment list. The explanation for this provision is found on pages 820 and 821 of the JCAM, which state in part, management may always assign another carrier to perform the work at the straight time rate rather than assigning overtime to a carrier on the work assignment list. Management may also assign PTFs and CCAs at the straight time rate or overtime rate, up to the ELM limitations. Now those are the main things you got to look for when it comes to Article 8 that will be in effect November 29th through December 26th this year during the December Exclusionary Period. I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing me say December Exclusionary Period, but now let's talk about Article 11, holiday schedules. Article 11 governs the schedules for holidays, of which are plentiful this time of the year. Article 11 of the National Agreement provides the contractual language governing holidays observed by letter carriers. At times, it can be confusing as to when holidays are observed, who is supposed to work, when it is necessary to staff postal operations on holidays or designated holidays, or the rules regarding the posting of holiday schedules. To protect your rights regarding this issue, it is important for letter carriers to understand how all of this is supposed to work. Article 11, Section 5 identifies that when a holiday is observed, if it falls on a non-workday, if a holiday falls on a Sunday, the following Monday is observed as the holiday. When a holiday falls on a Saturday, the preceding Friday becomes the holiday. When a holiday falls on a weekday, the actual day of the holiday is what is observed. When a full-time regular, full-time flexible, or part-time regular carrier's scheduled non-workday falls on the day observed as the holiday, their scheduled workday preceding the holiday becomes that carrier's designated holiday. For example, Thanksgiving falls on Thursday, November 27th. Since Thursday is a normal workday, the holiday is observed on that same day. However, if a letter carrier's scheduled non-workday is November 27th, then their designated holiday will become Wednesday, November 26th. The National Agreement, as well as the JCAM, also lay out a pecking order for scheduling employees to work on holidays and designated holidays. Holiday scheduling is governed by the provisions of Article 11, Section 6 of the National Agreement, and any applicable local memorandum of understanding provisions. Article 11 requires that management determine the number and categories of employees needed for holiday work. Remember, this article is meant to keep as many carriers off for that holiday as possible. So try and keep track of whether or not management is scheduling too many, like if everybody's leaving in 6 hours. Article 11, Section 6, Holiday Schedule. The employee would determine the number and categories of employees needed for holiday work, and a schedule shall be posted as of the Tuesday preceding the service week in which the holiday falls. The National Agreement, as well as the JCAM, also lay out a pecking order for scheduling employees to work on holidays and designated holidays. However, the method of scheduling may vary locally, as Article 30, Section B, permits the local parties to negotiate a different pecking order in their LMOU, if they so choose, which most of them did. Absent LMOU provisions, the JCAM provides the following pecking order for holiday assignments. 1. All part-time flexible employees to the maximum extent possible, even if the payment of overtime is required. 2. All full-time regular, full-time flexible, and part-time regular employees who possess the necessary skills and have volunteered to work on their holiday or their designated holiday by seniority. 3. CCAs. 4. All full-time regular, full-time flexible, and part-time regular employees who possess the necessary skills and have volunteered to work on their non-scheduled day by seniority. 5. Full-time regular, full-time flexible, and part-time regular employees who possess the necessary skills and have not volunteered on what would otherwise be their non-scheduled day by inverse seniority. 6. Full-time regular, full-time flexible, and part-time regular employees who possess the necessary skills and have not volunteered on what would otherwise be their holiday or designated holiday by inverse seniority. Article 11, Section 6 also requires that management post a holiday schedule as of the Tuesday preceding the week in which the holiday falls. Since USPS work weeks run from Saturday to Friday, for the Thanksgiving example, the holiday schedule must be posted by Tuesday, November 18th. What if the holiday schedule is not posted as of the Tuesday preceding the week in which the holiday falls? The Employee Labor Relations Manual, Section 434.53C1 states, a holiday scheduling premium equal to 50% of the amount paid in 434.53A is paid to eligible employees for time actually worked on a holiday or on the employee's designated holiday except Christmas, when the holiday. In addition, the national agreement reads, if the schedule is not posted as of Tuesday preceding the service week in which the holiday falls, a full-time regular bargaining unit employee who is required to work on his or her holiday or designated holiday or who volunteers to work on that day receives holiday scheduling premium for each hour of work not to exceed 8 hours. This premium is in addition to both holiday leave and holiday worked pay. Section 434.53A says that eligible employees who are required to work on their holiday or designated holiday are paid at their basic hourly straight time rate for each hour worked up to 8 hours. Therefore, if the holiday schedule is not posted as of the Tuesday preceding the week in which the holiday falls, affected full-time regular carriers who are required or who volunteer to work on their holiday or designated holiday receive a holiday scheduling premium in the amount of 50% of their basic hourly straight time rate for each hour they work on that day up to 8 hours. Any hours worked in excess of 8 hours on an employee's holiday or designated holiday are paid at the applicable overtime rate because they are subject to Article 8 rather than Article 11. The default holiday scheduling pecking order described earlier, in the absence of applicable LMOU pecking orders, must be followed regardless of whether or not full-time employees are on the overtime desired list or work assignment list. It is easy to misunderstand the relationship between the holiday scheduling provisions of Article 11 and the overtime scheduling provisions of Article 8. It is important to make a clear distinction between the two separate phases of scheduling holiday work. 1. The advanced scheduling of employee needs for the holiday work, and 2. The assignment of overtime work on an actual holiday or designated holiday among employees who were properly scheduled. So this means that anything up to 8 is Article 11, and anything after 8 is Article 8. Much as what is often incorrectly considered overtime worked by full-time employees on their holidays or designated holidays is technically not overtime. Rather, it is holiday worked pay or holiday scheduling premium. For the purpose of overtime provisions outlined in Article 8, the only work that is contractually considered to be overtime for full-time employees working on their holiday or designated holiday is work beyond 8 hours in a day. Non-ODL carriers working on a holiday or designated holiday are considered to be working on their scheduled day. Mittenthal 6, C6, 775, page 13. Thus, they may be required to work overtime only under the provisions of Article 8.5.C.2.d as modified by the letter carrier paragraph found in the JCAN. Non-ODL carriers working on their non-scheduled day can be required to work beyond 8 hours only after the ODL had been exhausted, as required by Article 8.5.g. Similarly, since letter carriers on the work assignment list are working on a holiday or designated holiday are considered to be working on their scheduled day, they should be assigned overtime on their own assignments as required by the National Agreement Work Assignment Letter of Intent. By contrast, if letter carriers on the work assignment list are working on their non-scheduled day, the provisions of the work assignment agreement do not apply. Alright, now, there are a lot of times when management does not follow the rules that were just outlined. Take this episode and pack it away because you're going to need it every time a holiday comes up or the December Exclusionary Period comes up. Whenever there is a violation of these rules, it's going to be really important for you to contact your steward as soon as possible if there are any issues with anything discussed today. Hopefully, you learned something valuable today, and as always, have a good day.
Out to the Roseville Wrecking Ball. He is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God, we need Article 8 scholars right now. The Grievous Genius and the Roseville Wrecking Ball doing amazing work.
Brothers and sisters, this guy is good, man. He's fucking good.
And my boy Joshua, he killed it. Man, he's lockstep right now. He's killing it.
You would think this guy has been around for 30